welcome back, Cherokee Trail. Hope everybody is doing great. This weather has been fabulous, so it's been nice to be able to get outside. So hopefully you've been out riding your bike, skateboarding, building forts. We are going to start the second chapter of Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusti Bowling. We finished the first chapter. If you have not listened to the first chapter, you can go back, and they have like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 on each of the files. So you can read them in order, and they're pretty short, so you can probably read more than one. And when I say read, you actually can read, because not only can you hear me, you're going to be able to see it on the screen in this video. So you can actually read along as I'm going, and I'll be turning the pages. So we're going to start off. We learned a little bit about Avon in the first chapter, and I think you got to see a little bit of her personality, actually a lot of her personality in those stories that she created about how to explain why she had no arms. And I'd sort of challenged you to think of some ways that you could explain to people, like tell a funny story about why you had no arms, or, you know, maybe something else you wanted to explain to people, but you wanted to make it funny, but somewhat believable. And so she was pretty funny, but she has just found out at the end of the first chapter, she's just told us that the first problem in this story is that she is going to have to move. And she's always lived in the same town. She's gone to school with all the same kids. So, you know, her being armless hasn't seemed to be that big of a deal because everybody just knows her as Avon. But now she's going to have to go someplace and meet people who don't know anything about her. And as you can imagine, this is going to create some difficulties and problems. So, chapter 2. The day Dad told me he wanted to apply for a job as a theme park manager in Arizona, I thought it was quite possible aliens had taken over his brain. Either aliens or the government. I knew from my great-grandma the government was capable of dreadful things. She was always saying stuff like, if the public only knew what the government was up to, there would be a revolution, and pumping her spotted, wrinkled fist in the air. I wasn't completely sure why an 86-year-old woman who lived in a trailer in Kansas was the only person privy to this top-secret information. But she clearly was. So I wouldn't put it past the government to insert some kind of mind control chip into Dad's brain and force him to run a crumbling theme park in the desert. My parents discussed it with me one night over a dinner of buttered noodles, my favorite meal. Oh man, I just realized they deliberately buttered me up with buttered noodles. So I got an email from a guy by the name of Joe Kavanaugh, Dad said over his noodles. He owns a place called Stagecoach Pass. What's that? I asked, slurping up a noodle. It's this Western-themed amusement park in Arizona. I guess he found my resume on one of the job sites where I posted it. Anyway, he invited me to apply for the position of general manager at the park. He must have been impressed with your resume, Mr. Big-Time Restaurant Manager, said Mom. Well, said Dad, I'm not really sure how managing a restaurant relates to managing an entire theme park, but I guess a huge part of their business is the steakhouse there, so that's probably why he contacted me. Are you going to apply? Asked Dad. I asked. It does sound interesting, said Dad. I scowled. Arizona's really far away. Don't you forget you were born there, Sheebs, Dad said. We spent a lot of time there during your adoption, and we really liked it. We even thought it might be a great place to retire one day. The winter was so beautiful, warm and sunny. I'm sick of icy winters. What's the summer like? I said. Mom grimaced. I heard it's kind of like, and this is where my picture there is over the words. I heard it's kind of like the surface of the sun. It could be an exciting adventure. Dad waggled his eyebrows at me. Swimming and soccer all year long. I glared at my noodles. I don't think I want to play soccer on the surface of the sun. Come on, said Dad. You're such a pro, you could play soccer anywhere. Stop trying to entice me, I said. You haven't even applied yet. Well, if it's okay with you, I'd like to. On the one hand, the thought of leaving Kansas in the only home I could ever remember sounded worse than anything. On the other hand, Dad had lost his job nearly 6 months earlier when the restaurant he'd been managing went out of business. He really needed this. It's okay with me, I mumbled, feeling like I might cry. Dad applied, and then he and Mom were invited to go to Arizona for an interview and to check the place out. And then they were invited to stay and run the theme park together. Turns out it was more of a 2-person job. And so we sold off a ton of our furniture and donated the junk we didn't need and packed the rest of our belongings into a giant pod that would magically disappear from Kansas and magically reappear in Arizona a week later. Drove our car over 1,000 miles westward across the country, praying the entire time we wouldn't break down. We managed to make it in one single long day without stopping in a hotel until we got to Phoenix. By the time we arrived, Dad's eyes looked like atomic fireballs and Mom's hair looked like she'd taken a spin in a hair spray cyclone. Early the next morning, we drove by the giant covered wagon with Stagecoach Pass printed on it in large brown block letters, and I saw the park for the first time. And then I knew for sure the government and mind control chips were involved. Okay, so now we know where she lived. I don't think in the first chapter that they actually said where she lived. She lives in Kansas. And where is Kansas? Okay, yep, right. It's like right next to Colorado. And where is Arizona on the map? Okay, Arizona is like down below, over west a little bit of Colorado. So they're going to have to travel. Bad. What do you think? Why don't you look on a map and see if you could plot out what was the most direct way to get from Kansas to Arizona? Would they actually go maybe through parts of Colorado? It's very possible. That would be fun. Look and see if you can figure out what would be the quickest way to get there. Now, it does say that they go to Phoenix first, and then they go and drive over to Stagecoach Pass. Now, that may be a made-up name, but figure out if you can figure out if they were to come from Kansas, how they would go and get to Phoenix. Now, it doesn't really say where in Kansas. Secondly, she says, I knew for sure the government and mind control chips were involved because when they saw the park for the first time, do you think, was she impressed? Or did she think, oh no? Yeah, sort of sounds like maybe, oh no, because she thinks mind control chips were involved in her parents deciding to actually even do this. So the theme park must not look fabulous right at first glance. So Dad has been without a job, and that's tough. And so this is just a good opportunity for them, even though it means that Avon's going to have to move far away. I know some of you have had to move, maybe because Mom and Dad lost a job, maybe because they just got a new job someplace far away. So you guys can probably relate to when she said they got rid of a bunch of stuff and then they put a bunch of stuff in this big pod and it was magically going to leave Kansas and end up in Arizona. So you guys have seen some of those moving pods before. Okay, so second chapter. A big decision has been made. She sort of alluded to it at the end of the first chapter. And now she is officially in Phoenix, which is as hot as the surface of the sun in the summer. Okay, look forward to seeing you in the next chapter, chapter 3. Talk to you later. Bye.